So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
I will not be shamed out of discussing this by people who say it's slut shaming or it's not relevant. It is relevant when a young candidate tries to sleep her way into politics and into power. And that is what it appears Kamala Harris did when she was a young political aspirant in San Francisco, when she had an affair with a man 30 years older than she was. She was 29 to 30 and he was 60, Willie Brown, who was like the godfather of San Francisco politics and very well known. And sure enough, that relationship paid dividends for her in more ways than one. The position that he gave her on the California Medical Assistance Commission in 1994 paid at that time over $70,000 a year, which is about $120,000 in current money. And she served on the board until 1998, so about 4 years. That medical commission met twice a month. So for 2 meetings a month, she was getting the equivalent of $120,000. And you know why Democrats in San Francisco were mad about it? It wasn't because she wasn't qualified, which she wasn't. It was because those positions are supposed to be saved for only the most prized Democrats who Willie Brown really owed favors to, who did really, amazing things to keep Willie Brown in power. But instead, he gave one to his lover. He was, by the way, still married, though he was reportedly estranged from his wife for a long time. This was technically an extramarital relationship. There was another one. He gave her a second position as well, which was basically the same kind of deal, where he just gave her an appointment. She reeked in tons of money, and boom, Bob's your uncle. She was off to the races in Dem politics. And then Willie Brown is on record as saying, I also then helped her with her next big position, which was becoming San Francisco DA.
But Willie Brown didn't forget her when Kamala decided to run for district attorney of San Francisco. He was there quietly nudging all of his wealthy donors and powerful connections to help her out. Him and Terrence Holland, the existing district attorney, were not friends anymore. They had kind of had an ugly clash. And Kamala Harris likewise tried to overthrow Holland's second in command, but failed miserably. And so she ended up leaving the office to kind of plot her revenge. Well, the interesting race is when she ran against Steve Cooley for the attorney general position in 2010. Cooley was a relatively sensible law and order Republican from Los Angeles, and really the last meaningful Republican in California politics. And even it was a big year for Democrats. They won by double digits for California Democrats. But Kamala Harris really struggled against Steve Cooley and barely edged out a victory. It looked like the night of the election that she had lost. And lo and behold, weeks later, they did recounts and recounted all the rest of the votes, and she just barely squeaked off a victory. It was really close, and you can definitely look at that campaign and see that maybe she will be competitive in this race against Donald Trump as well. But it's hard to see that happening.
Some are now trying to excuse her awkwardness, repeated and everywhere, as she lost her footing as vice president and didn't have the confidence required to really be herself, which I guess is this secret version of charming. Is there anything in her past that would shed light on what's true about her? Has she always been awkward like this, with the weird laughing and the inappropriate jokes and every time the failed attempts at profundity?
Yeah, a lot of it's the product of being a California politician, right? When you're a California Democrat, all you have to do is impress the donors, impress the political power brokers, and kind of show up and demand a seat at the table. Willie Brown taught her how to do that. So she did have some level of that with the top donors, but she never really connected with the California people. But as we've shown earlier, you don't necessarily need to convince voters. You just need to convince the Democratic Party, and everything will fall in line for you pretty well. The same thing happened when she ran for Senate. She's a very good candidate. She's very disciplined. She loves the sort of the knife fighting and the brawling. She's on the record saying she loves California politics because it's a real fight. So she is a sort of a ruthless politician, a ruthless campaigner. But after taking office, there's definitely a drop down. Once you actually have to do the job, she never seemed to take it seriously and spent more time planning for her next job. When a politician hits that stage, the early stage of actually having to do the job, I think that's when they tend to lose their footing and stumble. And I think that's what Kamala Harris ended up looking like. And that's why her staff kind of abandoned her, because she wasn't serious about the office she was holding. And she was more interested in preparing herself to run for president.
That I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
You know, Kamala Harris, she's running for the vice presidency. I call her Miss Lock Up a Brother, for when she was the AG in California, a Negro knew, a black man knew that he was dead in the water. He was dead in the water. Matter of fact, you don't need a trial. You might well go into jail if you appear before her, because she took pride in locking up black folk. And now all of a sudden she's trying to be sister girl. I'm telling it. Check out her record. She locked us up left and right. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Yes, you did, Kamala, however I should pronounce it, you did. And now we're supposed to forget all that stuff. And she boasted in California that she was one of the first. I got the tape cued, but my time's up to date. One of the first I showed you Thursday night to perform a same-sex marriage. Y'all want to see it? You want to see it? Let it rip.
Let the rings exchanged and the vows declared symbolize your commitment, sincerity, and affection.
Yeah.
And may your love never falter.
May your love never falter.
By virtue of the power and authority vested in me by the state of California, I now declare you spouses for life.